The initial plan of my film was to embrace a dense use of digital assets so it could be outstanding on its own and was an opportunity to learn 3D modeling and animation. I had begun with my plans for many of 9 miniature videos to be simple GIFs of moving 3D files. I also wanted to do 3D models and possible prints, a model scale vehicle and a generic science fiction prop. I had designed the prop but nothing else. I instead devoted early time to the story and costume development. I did all the drawings using my go-to pen tool and shape builder in Adobe Illustrator. Some time was spent in Maya trying to make the cylindrical tool, but miraculously becoming adept at a technique that has perplexed me for so long might have been too much to ask of myself, regardless of it being so crucial to the subject. The prop was drastically simplified and based on found items, when constructed out of balsa wood in our workshop. Eyewear was worn, distances were kept from hazardous equipment. For the film, the actors' comfort, feeding and temperature were taken into account. They were slippered when breaking an ancient piece of glass technology. Simple but arduous preparation was taken with lighting, covering doors and taping backdrops too. A makeshift store-bought costume was used, with particular attention being paid to colour and simplicity. When all the footage was collected, rather than create the effects in the pre-sliced favoured clips, I first tried editing all the clips to music. I also planned on composing my own music, but I found the overall effect more compelling when I sampled existing music from my inspirational sources. Logan's Run, Star Trek, Oxygen, etc. I merely recut and jumbled the sci-fi sounds I had already used for the editing. I wanted the movie to mostly be silent. A backing track trying to force an emotion might come off as obnoxious, and dialogue would make no sense and damage the cryptic message. A big part of the accomplished effect work has been covering up inconveniences from filming. Here I had to make it appear the character had just entered a new room that was creating itself around them. Wanting to use a new device, I rotoscoped the subject from the background, then touched up the rotoscoping mask frame by frame. I created in Photoshop an approximation of the background using gradients, grains and blurs. I then allowed the background to appear by having the yellow lines draw themselves in using the trim path tool. I drew the lines over the footage and had them animate middle out and made the animation its own composition. While that functioned as a track matte, the rest of the background could fade in slightly and I could play with lighting a tiny bit. Here was a great deal of work with a simple track matte applied to shapes appearing in and out. The final effect just has some moving warps and lighting changes. I also wanted to slightly touch up the scene with some fog and an overlaid masked 3D object. The camera shake was so subtle when viewing frame by frame I couldn't quite account for it, and I wasn't sure whether applying a fade to the mask would help another visible problem. These are my beginnings for the opening sequence of the short. I wanted to make a simple model made livelier in post-production. I began layer by layer, affecting circles with the shape builder and pen tool and Illustrator to design it, then approximating the lines with a drawn MacGyvered compass. I roughly masked out where I wanted to spray paint and will eventually begin to polish some textures and add raised details. With the suspicion of having missed out not designing something in 3 dimensions, I planned on designing an approximately themed casing for a small USB thumb drive to be 3D printed and store the film. I drew and experimented with proportion lines using the pen tool and shape builder so I could export SVGs to Maya and hopefully touch it up there. Reviewing the footage to find appropriate spaces for sound, Foley work was recorded using a good USB microphone. This far in I still had to get some pickup shots where some shots had fallen flat and some were unintentionally absent. A bunch of footage could be deemed unusable and the only solutions are to frame by frame draw a continuation of the main background and or get new footage, tolerating the new continuity errors. I'm proud of what this could have become. My grandiose intent hit reality when production began. Before wrangling, time and budget-conscious reconvening was a difficult trek in unfamiliar footwear. After has been important for my abilities to keep on top and work out beyond the task. I fear circumventing extreme difficulty in pre- and post-production in order to complete the task has limited the number of solutions and innovating in my learning, but with the work behind and ahead, I have confidence I can realize a funhouse version of my vision. I believe all art is different from its conception, so it must be on the right track, near departure.